Hey guys, I am Stewart Breeding and welcome back to Studio 2 here in Nashville, Tennessee. Today we're going to talk about the bent row. Now, many strength coaches talk about the bent row in terms of it being an accessory exercise. So an accessory exercise is an exercise that you would do to make another exercise better. For instance, let's say I'm having issue with back extension in my deadlift. I might be told to do a bent row to accompany or as an accessory lift for the deadlift to work on my weak back. Well, I call the bent row a foundational exercise, and it's foundational because of this. The bent row is the only exercise that will make all the other lifts improve. I'm going to say it one more time. The bent row is the only exercise that you can do that will make every other single lift improve. And that includes all the power lifts, the deadlift, the bench, and squat, the Olympic lifts, clean and jerk, and snatch. All of those lifts are affected by the bent row. And no other lift will make the other lifts go up like the bent row. For instance, the bent row will make my deadlift improve, but the deadlift will not make my bench improve. It won't make my clean and jerk or snatch improve. The squat won't make my bench improve. The bench won't make my squat improve. On and on and on. The bent row is the only exercise that you can do that will make all those lifts improve in terms of technique and strength. Here's why. When we look at the proper setup in the bent row that we'll get into here in a second, every single muscle in my body is firing. When I get into the bottom position of this exercise, my quads are having to stabilize the knee directly over the feet. My hamstring is in full extension from the hip below the knee. This is critical for hip flexion and extension, which is the key to generating power in all the major lifts. My back is in full extension. Every single muscle, including the erectors, my lats, rhomboids, and traps, are keeping my spine stabilized and neutral, and my scapula retracted, which is absolutely essential in every single lift, including all the presses. I know what you're thinking. What does a bent row have to do with my bench press? Well, if I can't retract my scapula, I can't get my shoulder, the glenohumeral socket, in proper position for the lifts. You simply cannot squat like this. You cannot deadlift like this. You cannot snatch. You cannot clean and jerk. There's nothing you can do if the shoulders are in improper alignment and my T-spine is compensated. The bent row fixes all of that when done properly. Okay guys, so I'm going to show you two different techniques in the bent row. This first one is the classic bent row, and I'm going to do it from the rack. Now, before we get started, there's two hand positions. You can do this pronated with the hand over top, or supinated, turned this way. If you want to include more bicep into the movement, this is the hand position. You want to do it a little bit more narrow. If it's supinated, you want to do it a little bit wider. I'm going to do this first set supinated. I'm going to put my ring finger in line with the ring on the bar. Make sure I'm even. Walk my hip directly up to the bar and put it over the center of my foot. Now, before I pick up the bar, I'm going to take a second, get organized, get my head in position, retract my scapula, tight core, and stand up with the weight. All I got to do is step out one time, and it's still got that nice organized feel in my body. Nothing is slack, nothing is relaxed. From here, this is the key critical first step to the bent row success. My hip has got to fully extend, okay? So remember before, I was talking about the hamstring position. My hamstring is inserting right above the knee and at the bottom of the hip. The more I extend my hip, the more I tighten up that hamstring. And remember, this is the power generator in the Olympic and power lifts, the squat, the deadlift, clean and jerk, and snatch. If you've got an overactive or tight hamstring, you're going to have issues with this. And the bar placement is going to be forward. The center of mass will be forward over your toes. You'll never get into proper alignment. So once I set this guy up and I start the movement, my hip fully extends back. And I'm going to stop this bar right above the knee. From here, I'm going to squeeze the shoulder blades together and pull roughly right below the xiphoid process. And I'm not using any weight so you guys can see all angles. Right up into the xiphoid process. Now, my hip, as I said before, is fully extended. My hamstring is as tight as I can get it. My quadriceps are tight, holding the knee over top of the toe. And I'm not allowing any kind of body English right now. I'm moving lightweight, and I'm trying to learn how to execute this lift with the muscles that I'm most concerned with activating. And in this case, it's those shoulder blade muscles, the rhomboids, the mid-traps, the lats, the muscles that are responsible with keeping my shoulder in proper alignment. So you have to understand, if the muscles that I'm trying to activate the most are the scapular muscles, I need to intersect these muscles with the gravitational line. This barbell is moving in a vertical path. The barbell is always, 99% of the time, moving in a vertical path. So if I'm trying to get my middle back, my T-spine muscles activated, I've got to intersect those muscles with a straight line. Now, the more parallel or horizontal to the floor I get, the harder it is for my back, my rectors specifically, to support that weight. That's why it's really critical when you start this lift, you use relatively light weight, try to move into a position where your hip is fully extended back, and if you look, I can bring almost the entire surface of my shoe off the floor. My center of mass is somewhere right around where the knot is on top of the shoe. The more my hip I can get back, the more I can support this and be extended and stabilized in my spine and intersect the muscles that I'm trying to hit. Okay guys, so the next variation I'm going to show you is called the pendulé row. It's named after Glenn Pendlay, great Olympic weightlifting coach out of Cal Strength. So this lift is a little bit more technical. It's a little bit more advanced, a little harder to do correctly. And I'm going to show you why. So the setup on this starts from the floor. The way I start the movement is everything here. The last thing I ever want to do, once again, is just collapse forward, get to the bar, and then try to start setting up. I'm going to do this from the top down, the same way I would set up a Romanian deadlift or any deadlift. So I'm going to put the bar roughly over the center of my foot. I'm going to organize my head, shoulders, and abs. Get everything nice and tight in the core. From here, I'm going to drive the hip back and set this up exactly like I would do my Romanian deadlift. Come down, get my grip position. From here, I've already got nice hip extension and extension all the way up into the bottom of my T-spine. If you look at that, the T-spine right now is a little bit relaxed. From here, I'm going to drop the hip and pull my entire back into extension. Everything is engaged. And at the last second, before I pull, I'm going to get a little tighter in the T-spine. You'll hear the bar click in. From here, it comes all the way back down to the floor. It hits me right below the xiphoid, back down to the floor. It's fast up, slow down. Fast up, slow down. Or I can just do it with power. But what's key here is my back position does not change. If you're doing it slow, control, back position does not change. If you're doing it with power, the back position does not change. Okay guys, so let's talk about some common mistakes I see with the bent row. The first is the way people approach the bar. Most people, when I watch them do this exercise, just walk up to the bar, start jerking on it. Remember, every single lift you do, you should approach with an organized, stabilized spine. And that means your head is positioned directly over top of the shoulders. If I am moving my spine horizontal to the floor, that means my head and my eyes are traveling with it. I don't want my C-spine broke. I don't want to be looking in the mirror in this position. Not a good idea. My shoulder blades should be retracted. The shoulder needs to be in position to do this lift. My abs and core should be tight and fully engaged. Now, the second mistake I see is people are always trying to stand straight up when doing this lift. So when they set it up, they tend to start really well in a bent row here, and then next thing you know, they're standing straight up. Now, there's a couple of reasons for this. One is, if you're a beginner to weight training or you've been weight training for years and years, there's a good chance that your posterior chain is weak. Now, if your posterior chain is weak, you're probably not firing right in your core either. It is not easy to stabilize the spine in this position, especially under load. It takes time to develop strength. But to get there, to be able to do this exercise correctly, means that you have to be able to hold this neutral, stabilized spinal position. Don't compensate. Do not compensate by trying to stand up and escape the movement. The whole benefit to the bent row is that your body is in a relatively horizontal position to the floor. Remember, as I stand up, I'm dealing with gravity. If I turn this movement from a horizontal position to the floor to this position, I am now doing an upright row, and that's a shoulder exercise, totally different. Okay guys, another common mistake that I see in the bent row is people are jerking themselves out of position. It looks something like this. If I get down and I set this guy up, even if I set the bottom up properly, I might be using a weight that's too heavy for me. And I rip on that bar and I pull myself, specifically my T-spine, out of position. This bent over position, flexion in the spine, is an absolute no-no in all of the barbell lifts. We never want to see the T-spine compensated. We never want to see curvature in the spine. You also see it in the bent row. Even here, people are jerking and flexing their body, flexing their spine. This is an absolute no-no. There's nothing wrong with body English, but it looks something like this. If I'm going to use a little bit more power, I want to use my whole body and pull myself further into extension or a bent row, further into extension. I want to pull my shoulder blades back, push my hip back even further so I can stabilize this exercise. Pull into extension, never flexion. Thanks for watching.